Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer. So today's kind of an interesting day. I knew the GTX 1650 was to be released, and I saw no reviews up. I kept checking online until I came across this article on Tech Power Up, where everything pretty much made sense thereafter. So it looks like Nvidia wasn't too thrilled with the performance of their GTX 1650 and seemingly withheld drivers from reviewers. So they had to wait until the consumer drivers had been released here today, so they couldn't do any testing. So we can't really get day one reviews, or so they thought, and that's something we'll go over here in a minute. But anyways, this first paragraph, they're just going over basically the specs of the thing. The Geforce GTX 1650 at its given price point is positioned competitively with the Radeon RX 570 4GB. Okay, so they're going to be comparing this to the RX 570, which is hilarious because it's the same card as an RX 470. So we're comparing Nvidia's brand new architecture and their brand new GPU against a 3-year-old GPU. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We're comparing directly against a 3-year-old card. And it gets funnier the longer this goes on. But anyway, Nvidia has been surprisingly low-key about this launch by not just leaving it up to their partners to drive the launch, but also to sample reviewers. So apparently there's been grumblings amongst most of the reviewers out there. There are no pre-launch reviewer drivers, which I mentioned, and hence they don't have anything to talk about at this point. So I decided to scroll on down and check out the comments. And so Wizard's working on his benchmarks, and 2 posts in, then we get this. There's no guide, no presentation, no briefing, nothing, and we know why. The performance just isn't there. So we can see that we have an MSI GTX 1650 against the RX 570 in Witcher 3, which is an Nvidia-sponsored DirectX 11 title, so almost worst-case scenario for AMD, and it's beating it out by a pretty good percentage. Just decided to do the math there, so the RX 570 is coming out essentially 13% ahead, once again in a DirectX 11 Nvidia-sponsored title. Now, AMD has done good work with their drivers to get Witcher 3 running well on Polaris, so it's not the worst-case scenario, but it's almost the worst-case scenario. Now, that's not a lot to go on, and I was like, oh man, I wanted to do this video because I want to talk about more things in the second half that I think is more important. But the crazy folks over at Gamers Nexus, they were able to get up their day one GTX, I wanted to call it RTX, their GTX 1650 day one review. So there's a lot more information in there basically showing the same sort of thing. The big difference is that they're using a 90-watt model of the GTX 1650. So it's not the 75-watt version, which is going to clock a lot lower, take up less power consumption, but it's going to be slower than what they tested. They found out that the RX 570 is about 10-ish% faster overall. So more than likely, the 13% we were just looking at was likely a 75-watt model. Going back to the comment section over on Tech Power Up, we can see the craziness that is the new GPU market. Okay, so looking at some of these comments here, basically, this guy is just saying, did you expect it to beat the RX 570? I honestly had no expectations going into this card. On the other hand, the absolute performance of this GPU is 30% higher than the 1050 Ti and 55% higher than the GTX 1050, while costing a bit more than the 1050 Ti and only consuming 75 watts. That's not so bad. And this is the new argument, is because you can run one of these without a power connector, and this will fit inside of those pre-built PCs out there, those office machines, that this is somehow a good thing and worth a premium price. It's faster than what we were getting last generation. Yeah, it costs more, but it's not bad. It's only 75 watts. This is absolute insanity, people. Cheap, budget, entry-level GPUs like this, which will likely be beaten or matched by the next Ryzen APU that they come out with, that's not a good thing. You should not be paying a premium for cheap GPUs. These are entry-level, basic, cheapest of the cheap, worst of the worst GPUs. That's why they don't draw a lot of power. There's nothing there. They're not good cards. They're meant to be inexpensive so people can get basic graphics on their computers. That's what they're meant to be. They're not meant to be super fast, but at the same time, they're not supposed to be $150 to $200. The 1650 that Gamers Nexus was reviewing was one of the better ones. It has the 90 watt TDP, it has a better cooler, and I think they said it was $179. That's crazy. You're talking about a GPU that's being beaten by a 3-year-old $130 video card. This is absolute insanity. And just because it doesn't draw a lot of power, this is somehow making it a premium. Now, for that $50 price difference between an RX 570 and, let's say, a good version of this GTX 1650, you can go ahead and actually buy a new case and a new power supply and then use the RX 570, which is faster. So even if you had one of those office machines, it's actually cheaper to buy a whole new case and a whole new power supply to get the faster GPU that is cheaper. It's absolute insanity. There's no reason in the world to be thinking something just because it doesn't use a lot of power is worth a lot of money. Now, granted, if they had something like an RTX 2060 running at 75 watts, that would be worth it because that's a massive performance increase per watt. Now, just making a lower, slower GPU that draws less power, which naturally makes sense, does not mean that it's worth that much money. Honestly, guys, I don't get it. I don't know why everybody thinks that every GPU has to be a premium product. Pretty much none of them are worth the money from Nvidia right now. This entire lineup is the worst piece of crap I have ever seen. You're getting terrible price to performance across the board. You're basically comparing it against 3-year-old graphics cards. These cards are maybe 10% faster, and they cost as much, if not more. Why the hell are you people defending this shit? Stop buying this crap. Save your old graphics cards. Buy something used if you have to, and just wait until something worth it comes out. Why do you have to think that everything that comes out that's slightly faster is now a premium product and worth it? From top to bottom, we're starting to see this, but I never thought we would see entry-level GPUs being defended as premium products just because they don't require a power connector. PCMR community, you have lost your mind. And honestly, I can't even relate to these people anymore. If this is the way that you think about things, I can't even relate to you because the way that I view things is so completely different than your view on things in the world that you and I are never going to be able to relate when it comes to price and performance. Ever again. It's just never going to happen because we look at things so completely differently. Now, for those of you out there that are like, duh, the RX 570 is still the best price to performance, well, that makes sense. And okay, I wasn't expecting this to win. I was expecting it to be close, not a complete blowout. Really, when you think about it, what's AMD going to do? They're going to come out with Navi, and they're going to have to beat their own products, which means at the $130-ish price point, they're going to need to put something out that's faster than an RX 570. Or at the $150 price point, they'll have to put out something that's much faster than the RX 570. Maybe like an RX 590 level GPU. And then you're going to have the 1650 competing against that. I don't know, guys. It just kind of blew my mind. Now, you might be thinking, wait, this is just one comment on here. There's a bunch of them in there. I just picked that one because it's the first one. And I don't want to go through 100 of them. But yeah, there's a ton of comments in there that are saying the exact same thing. Because you can get one, which, by the way, is slower than the ones that Gamers Nexus tested. So you're looking probably 15% slower than an RX 570, costs more, and just because you can throw it into a cheap PC, which in cheap PCs, you actually want better price to performance, because that's the reason why you have a cheap PC. So you're negating that by having to spend more money on this card, but somehow that's a good thing. And just buying another case with a better power supply, that eludes most people out there. I don't know. I don't get it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I know I'm ranting a little bit here. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really helps me out. And that's all I have for today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.